and welcome to this week's episode of Even Flamingos Lose Their Pink. So, how are you? How are things? As you might be able to see if you're watching, if you're looking at a clip or whatever, I have a very unruly mohawk. I tried to stick it up before, but it didn't work. It's not playing. We're not having a good hair day. I went to get it cut the other day and I forgot I was trying to get it long. And then when I got home, Bruce reminded me that I was growing it long. So, back to square one. Anyway, how are you? How's your week? How's week's been? It's been a busy one. We had our first sickness bug run through the house. That was fantastic. Not. We went to the outdoor show on Saturday and to MegaCon. Now, the outdoor show was full of stuff that you didn't know you needed to go outdoors with, but when you saw it, you knew you wanted it. And MegaCon, so Bruce wanted to buy a sword in MegaCon from Final Fantasy IV, I think it was, and he kept saying he wasn't too sure what to do with it. He wondered if it was a bit too grown up. And I did point out we were in the NEC. It took over 3 of the halls of the NEC and it was full of adults in fancy dress. And I did point out that none of these people think that there. So why did he buy himself a sword? He didn't. And then he moaned about him not buying himself a sword all the way home. But it was a really good day, actually. It was really, I think we're going to go next year and do actual family fancy dress. So we need to think of a theme for the 5 of us to go. That'll be interesting. So anyway, let's do our check-in. How pink are you this week? So I've started working. For those watching, here it is on the screen. I think she puts it up somehow and does some this way. Actually, there's more room this side there. So we're doing a scale of 1 to 10 now. I've used my artistic skills on Procreate is what you do when you have babies, isn't it? Procreate, maybe that's what it's called. That's how I say it anyway. The app on the iPad. Oh my god, my words. The app the app Apple, and well, a lot of people you draw, it's for digital drawing, and I've pulled out the pink scale on that, and we're going to have 1 to 10. So 1 is currently named at New Flamingo Parent is the shade 1 is. 5 is meh. 10 is I'm gonna shake my tail feathers biatch. And then we've got a couple of ranges of sort of like nope and in control, but shit's getting wild. So I'm just putting the final touches to that, and I will be sharing that on social media. So I am currently sitting in the middle of meh, because after 5-6 days of everybody being sick in the house, last night I got my first full night's sleep, which was wonderful. I feel like a new woman. And as you can probably tell, I'm a bit nasally, so I have got, if this is what Magnus had the other week when he was poorly, no wonder the little sod was shocking. So yeah, that's where we are. That's what's gone on. I hope you've had a wonderful week so far. I hope you've been up to some stuff that's interesting, and if you've not, you've managed to do something for yourself, one thing maybe. So this week's topic is going to be about burnout. So last week we were talking about ADHD and neurodiversity, and following on from that, we're going to talk about burnout, because now burnout it's interesting because you get it in different parts of your life, but officially the World Health Organization, so WHO, only recognise it at the minute as something from work. So the work, what I mean work, occupational. So they see burnout from occupational point of view. So your job, your career, whatever that is for you, they recognise that as what can contribute to burnout. And it's a syndrome that occurs from undue extended stress and stressors. So there are sort of 3 ways to tell whether or not you are suffering from burnout. And here's a question for you. Let's see if you have all 3. It's like burnout bingo. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk a little bit about burnout, what it is, how that's looked for me in the past, and I didn't know what burnout was until recently. A lot of these things you'll find I didn't know these were things until after I've had them, and then when I've read them and I read about them, and someone goes, "I think that was happening," and you go, "Oh, yeah, I think that's what it was. That's what was happening. They're the reasons for those things." That makes a shit ton of sense now. So, I'm going to talk about burnout, the principle of burnout, what it looks like, and we're going to talk about because you're not. You're going to listen to me chat on about burnout and what that manifested and looked like for moi. And then I'm going to see what the research says about how to stop burnout. And I have one of my notes actually says "ha ha" next to one of the tips that someone gave for burnout. So that is what we're doing today. So hold on to your hats or your tail feathers, and we shall get back onto what burnout is in a sec.
So, burnout, what is it? What actually is it? So it's categorized by 3 dimensions. You've got energy depletion, fucking exhausted is the other version of that. Then they've got your mental distance, so basically distancing yourself from what you do in your work. So just switching off really and just doing the bare minimum. And also negativity and being very pessimistic about your job. So at the minute I'm talking about occupational burnout. There are different types of burnout that is more recognised now, that it isn't just work that fries your brain. You know, that there's a caregivers burnout. So people, what you find is if you're giving too much of yourself. Ooh, I broke my didn't realise that. I just broke my fidget toy. I didn't realise I undid. So if you give too much of yourself, basically, so it's long periods of stress. So long undue periods of stress cause burnout. So that's how you kind of know if you do have it or not. Now, if you can't get your ass out of bed and haven't got any energy, haven't got any motivation, that might be past burnout. So burnout is symptoms based on stresses that you have in that situation. So when you sort of are really apathetic, so you just can't be arsed about your job, you sit there thinking about having a different job all of the time and wishing you were doing something else. And then you've got the pessimistic bit of it too. So what they reckon is males and females show up differently to burnout. So females are more likely to have the emotional exhaustion and just not have any energy or any effort, whereas blokes more likely distance themselves and stick that wonderful wall up and don't engage and do the bare minimum and really just show up and go home. So and also burnout varies by person too. So one person's burnout is not necessarily the same as somebody else's. Now the when I was looking at the research and the evidence, the bigger difference between sort of massively depressed and burnout is that you turn up and you function. You're still able to do all of the stuff you do. It doesn't actually, it's not an illness, it's a syndrome. So I was kind of, when I read that myself, I was a bit like, I don't get that difference between the two. But yeah, there is quite a clear definition between sort of being extremely mentally unwell and burnout. I'm going to say that I am not a licensed therapist or anything. This is from my research that I've read. This is things that I've been through myself and people around me have been through too. So burnout transpires by those 3 categories really. So whilst the research is mainly about occupational burnout, they are recognising that there are other types of burnout that people face. So the 3 sort of bigger ones of that are marital burnout. So there was a study in 2021 that looked at heterosexual married couples, and it's sort of that stems from long-term conflicts and commitments. So if you both are doing different things and you sort of that banging against each other against a brick wall with the two of them, you have that constant stressor on you, and you're not able to get out of that stress situation. There's also the caregiver burnout. So when you sort of voluntarily care for someone, for those people who are looking after, those people that are looking after people, basically, that is the clue is in the title. And then there's also the parental burnout, because I mean, what's challenging about children? But it's interesting, isn't it? And I think there's sort of reflecting on, everyone knows that life is difficult. There's lots of stresses and stress things on everyone across life in general, but that the fact that the World Health Organization have only took a stance on one of those things, I suppose they've took, if you're gonna play that back and you're gonna reflect on it, why would you take a stance on only one? And I suppose only out of those 4 categories, so out of marital, parental, caregiver and work, there's probably more rules and things that you can implement to do with work. And I guess if you can reduce burnout in one area, you may be less likely to have burnouts in the other. So question mark. So and I think it's, people are recognising, and there's more research happening around the other ones, but it's interesting that it's just work related now, because all the articles that I was looking at and the research I was reading was all about work burnout and career burnout and occupational burnout. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know that, I get that, but surely there are other things in the world that cause that, life in general. And how do we prevent burnout in our day-to-day life? They still haven't figured that out, and I guess that's probably a multi-million-pound industry, isn't it? Sit down and relax and breathe. But we'll get on to sitting down, relaxing and breathing to stop burnout in a bit. So I think the thing about burnout is that I think there's a bit of, as with all of these things, there's stigma, isn't there, attached to stuff saying that you can't, not that you can't cope, because you can cope because you are functioning, which is why you burn out. But when you're kind of saying, oh, I'm exhausted, and the person in the desk next goes, yeah, well, I'm exhausted too, and I worked 12-hour days yesterday, and I'm blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, well, I did that too. Yeah, there's a bit of a, I guess, depending what organisation you work in and depending where you work, the principle is set around you, isn't it? So if you are in a safe environment where you can speak to your managers or your peers about feeling burnt out, that's great. You should have that. Everyone should be able to access that. I'm fully aware that in the real world that you're not. And there are sort of, I guess there's stereotypes on that too, because if you think about parenting, for instance, the traditionally, and I know this is not all the time, but traditionally the female in a heterosexual relationship does the does the majority of the parental looking after stuff. I know that isn't the case everywhere, and I'm aware that there are people, and Bruce is pretty good at this actually, there are people that do help with things like that, and it is like a partnership, but the default setting is that the woman does it. And it's interesting because I had a call with someone the other week who is hopefully going to be a guest in the next few weeks, who looks at sort of getting ready for going off maternity leave and coming back, and her business is about sort of getting those people ready for maternity leave and getting ready for people coming back, but looking at managers. And actually they started extending it to male managers too, because what she's been finding is that that men have that sort of, you know, we talked about it actually on the podcast when Bruce came on. There is that guilt that blokes have that they don't talk about because, well, for whatever reason that is, they don't talk about it. You know, that they've got kids themselves at home and they're expected to be the man and do the thing. And it's you know, that's tradition. That's sort of the old school way of thinking about things. You know, that sort of the sounded like what's it called? That's all, folks. What's it called? Percy Pig? Not Percy Pig. Porky Pig? That pig. That, you know, I'm on about from Warner Brothers. Anyway, so ADHD. Just go on a tangent. Oh, I broke it again. Yeah, so the blokes traditionally would do all the work and they have to be like there and do that, but they suffer from burnout too because of all that stress. And I think there's some of the bit, what I was trying to get to was the stereotypes that come with burnout. So, you know, if you're a mum, you just should do it, shouldn't you? And get on with it and be happy that you've got little sprogs at home and be happy that you've got a career and you've been able to go back to work and be happy that you're taking everything on. And men, you should be happy that you're working all the hours God sends to provide for your family, so your wife, partner, or the other person, significant other, can stay at home or not do or whatever that is. And they perpetuate into burnout because what happens is people don't actually say, oh, I'm exhausted, because it ends up being a competition then, who's more knackered than the other person. And that's from experience, and I'll go on to that in a sec. So the difference between stress and burnout is that burnout is an extended period of stress. So stress, you have like a stress cycle. So when a stress happens, an event that is stressful, back in the day, we had well, we've got fight, flight or freeze, haven't we? There are 3 responses to stress. So back in the day, in the middle of the, you know, jungle, when there was dinosaurs wandering around, if you stumbled across a T-Rex, you either fought it, you ran like fuck out of there, or you froze because you'd watched Jurassic Park and you don't move when a T-Rex turns up because they can't see movements. So what you'd have is the event, you'd see this danger, your body would flood with adrenaline, and you'd do one. And then you'd get home because you outrun the T-Rex. You'd be like, woohoo, it's over, it's done, I've completed it. And like all your family would be happy you survived, and you could tell the story over and over again and you'd be happy. So that circle's complete. You know, the stress happened, you ran off, you're happy. In today's society, sometimes our stress circle doesn't end. So the example I heard was about the commute. I mean, I potentially can't relate to this because my commute is out of my back door into my office for half the time. But bear with me. So when I did commute, so your stressor would be all of that, oh my God, I've got to get somewhere. I've got to get, especially with me, who's running late all the time, who lives life late. That extra stress on top of that about like, get all the stuff together. I've got to get out the door. I've got to get there. I've got to do. So you're in this like, you're fighting it because you're not running off because you can't unfortunately leg it from work. You've got to get there, apparently. So you're getting all this adrenaline. You've got all the cortisol flooded in the back of your brain. You're going, you're doing. You've got all this angst running. You're in the car and you're there. And you're on the train or whatever it is. Other things happen to you on the way. You know, that sod's pulled out in front of you. Train delayed because of the leaf on the track, or there's a bus service rerouting you everywhere, and you're looking at every bloody window as you're driving through your local area. And then you get to wherever you're getting to, and you don't like get out your car and skip joyfully into work. Well, I mean, you might do. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you do that. Maybe you have, I beat the commute, and you're on your way in. I mean, some of you probably do. Some of you probably don't. So, so you don't have that end woohoo, I'm past the stressor. I had it, I'm actioning it, and I've had it. So you have that stress stored in your body all day. You have that cortisol flooded constantly in the back of your head. So then you have that, and then you commute every day, and then you commute home because you've got to then go and pick someone up. You've got to get to the gym. You've got to get home to, I don't know, walk the dog, eat food, whatever that looks like. So you end up having this constant level of stress in your body. And because of the constant level of stress in your body, it creates that burnout because stress is tiring and it knackers you out. So it causes your emotional reserve, that drain. You're tapped empty into it. You've just gone. You're done. You're over. So you've got that, and then because you've got that, you just end up being really super negative in there as well, and you have that on top of that, and then you sort of disengage from what you're doing because you try and find a way to switch it off. So that's kind of how burnout builds and is. Stress is a short-lived, and not all stress is bad, by the way. Not all stress is bad. Prolonged periods of stress, not cool. Stress makes you do shit. Like, it makes you, the life you need stress in your life, but you don't need so much stress that you burn out. So it's that fine balance. Blah, blah, blah. So so I guess that sort of, if the stress feels never ending, you've got the risk of being burnt out. Because if you feel like you can't get out of it and you're feeling this hopelessness about the stress that you're in, not hopelessness as in depression and can't get out of bed, but the stress situation that you're in, this, it could be a sign that you've got burnt out. And the same sort of principles apply to the non-work related, I keep breaking this, the non-work related burnout phases. That's what happens. You get to a point and you think, is this never going to end? And that you're exhausted, and you've got very little in your tank, and that's how they categorize burnout. So I think when I look back at my career, and I look back, I've just lost my flamingo now. Hang on a sec. My klutzy hands aren't very good when I've got these fidget. I thought they were a bit more robust than it is, but it's not. It's very cute though. What was I saying? Oh yeah, work-related burnout. So when I look at my career and I look at points along the scale of if I had like an X and Y axis, and you kind of yeah, I can pinpoint, I can see those parts in my career where I had burnout and I was just running on empty, and I didn't know I was running on empty because I was still running, if that makes sense. So you still carry on going. And I think some of the culture that I worked in, the culture or the work or both, which one would it be? I think it's both. Because I think if your leaders and your managers are the example that you set yourself on, and they are there all of the time working, and they're the ones showing up at 7 and going home at 7, and there is a unwritten expectation that you guys all do the same, and no one's moaning about it because everyone's exhausted, everyone's jaded in the system, everyone's just like, I had enough, they're dead cynical because things will never change, this is just the way it is, and everyone sort of gets a bit disconnected because of all of that. If all of your peers are burnt out, a bit difficult to realise you're burnt out because you just think it's normal. So I think that I can quite vividly point out where I burn out and what I did, because I didn't know burnout was a thing. I'd got so disconnected from my jobs and my roles, I left. Found a new job and went, instead of, because I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. I just left. I got a new job because I was like, I'm fed up with this one. I can't. I've had enough. It is too much. This is just far too much. This is really difficult. It's more difficult than it probably needs to be. I'm going to get a new one because it must be easier over here. Yeah. What do they say? Spoiler. Yeah, it's not. It's not any easier anywhere else. It's all a bit difficult. And I think that I had several personal burnouts, and it was more. I guess I was never a parent until recently. I was never a voluntary caregiver. My job was a caregiving job. It was that's what I did. And you find actually in some careers more than others that you get more burnout than others. It's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of what happens. So you find if you're not in control of the choices around you in your work and your role, your chances of burnout are higher because you can lose your sense of self, and there can be a conflict in sort of what you have to do versus your values. And I think that's a topic probably we should look at in a couple of weeks, about values, about how to get your pink, what your values are, what are values, how to get them, what they are, and how they align. Because I think if one of the things is you don't know what your values are and what your purpose is, it sounds very deep, that, doesn't it? You can lose your sense of self, and then you can become a bit disengaged because you don't know where you are in that circle. You don't know what that looks like. So I think for me, my burnout my burnout came, I think my first burnout came probably when I was used to do like loads of nights and things, and you were just doing them all the time. It's a stressful job, isn't it? And because I used to work in A&E when I was clinical, it's relentless. It's really relentless. I loved it. I mean, I bloody loved it. I loved the organised chaos of it. But now, knowing I am now officially waiting for an assessment for my diagnostics for my ADHD. The GP has referred me over. Whoop, whoop. So now that we potentially think I do have ADHD, and people with ADHD are more likely to burn out because sort of day-to-day life is designed for people who are neurotypical. So if your day-to-day stresses are extra exacerbated because of your exacerbated because of your neurodiversity. So say, for instance, I lose everything. So if I spend all my time looking for stuff and trying to remember stuff, you feel constantly stressed because you're always trying to remember stuff and find the stuff that you've lost, as well as doing the day-to-day work. Or, as well in my case, I'm always late, so I'm always stressed about being late, and no matter how much I try to be early, I end up being late. I mean, I'm either so early, it's not open, no one's there, and that happens very rarely, or I'm just like half an hour late, and I get to the point of fuck it, that's what I'm turning up. So much so that, I mean, my whole family runs late. Everyone runs late. Some of our family run far later than others. You know who you are. You know exactly who you are. So some of our family run, and we have a Delaney time. And if you say turn up at 4, say dinner's at 4, don't expect to be served till about 5:30, because that's when everyone might be turned up by then. But there was still someone. I'm looking at you. There still might be someone doesn't turn up till 7. You know who you are. And the food's gone by then. But yeah, so because I live perpetually late, I have that extra stress of not only have I got to do my job and get there and be on time and be present and remember all my shit and remember what I'm meant to be doing and remember where I'm up to, but I've also got to remember to be on time. And it's all of those things together at once. It's so... I mean, when you layer it out like that, you can see, and and everyone has, it's not just people with ADHD or neurodiversity that experiences it. Burnout can affect anybody. It can affect absolutely anybody. And to prove just that, here are some statistics about burnout. So I'm going to read these so I don't get these wrong. 79% of UK employees experience burnout, and 35% of them report extreme levels of it. So 43 people from around 100 countries experienced workplace burnout in 2020, and this figure rose from 39 in 19. Burnout syndrome accounts for 8% of all occupational illnesses cases. 33% of employees say they're less focused at work as a result of burnout. So if you want someone to be productive, you don't want them to be burnt out because you want them to focus. More likely to make more mistakes, have more stress. Vicious circle. It's definitely a reason why you're not pink. It's definitely a reason not to be shaking your fucking tail feathers at someone, isn't it? It's definitely a reason to be new parent flamingo pink, because I can't. It's horrible. It's not. And this is not related to parenting. This is just related to everyday life. So who, if anyone out there is listening and thinks, I know someone actually that could do with listening, or maybe I think they've got burnout. There's so many resources out there. If you go on mind.org, I think it is, they're really good. They've got some fantastic resources on there. There's organisations, and the thing, I say organisations because I work in a big ass one. I mean, there are sole traders out there, aren't there? There are some single traders out there who are just working by themselves, who don't have a big ass HR department, who are their HR, who are their payroll, who are their training department, and don't have all that resources. So, there's I suppose there's, when I talk about organisation, so that gonna lead, what a great segue, it's like I've planned this. That leads us on to, how do we stop burnout? How do you stop from burning out? Or let's not burn out to start. How do we look for the signs, firstly, and look at the triggers to hopefully stop burnout? And if you are experiencing it currently, how may you help yourself get out of the rut that you find yourself in? So, one of the ways to get out of burnout, or at least start to make yourself feel a bit better, is to, when you talk about sort of detachment, the reason you get detached is because you don't understand where you are in things. So you don't understand your worth, how you show up, what that looks like, how that feels, what that is for the thing. So one of the things I say is find your purpose. Find your purpose, because that's easy, isn't it? It just says, there's a couple of, I've made notes for some of these things, and I have just put ha next thing. I think, oh yeah, because I've not thought about doing that yet. So no, but find your purpose is a really good one. And one of the things I like for, and I'll go back actually, I'll do values maybe next week, thinking about it. But one really good way I've done this before in the past, and I found it really helpful actually, was using a tool called Ikigai. It's IKIGAI. So it's called How to Find Your Purpose. It's a Japanese way of trying to find your purpose, and you use these circles that create a Venn diagram. So for those people that don't know what a Venn diagram is, think of one circle, think of another circle, think of an overlap in the middle. So if you have like colours is the best way to describe this. So you have like a red circle and you have a blue circle, and if you overlap you have a purple circle, and then you put like a yellow circle above that, and then where the red and the yellow meet you get an orange, where the yellow and the blue meet you get green, and then you have this sort of, that is a Venn diagram. It's a very cute Venn diagram because it's colourful. So the Ikigai is Ikagi. I'm butchering that pronunciation. But that is a really good tool about how to identify a purpose, because what it is in the middle of the Venn. So you've got 4 circles that you all make this Venn diagram. So in one of them is you write what you love. In one of them you write what the world needs. It's very out there, isn't it? What you can be paid for, and then what you're good at. And then sort of where they overlap, you've got. I'll put a link to it in the bio, and here it is. On the thing too. So it's a really good way of sort of sifting through a few things, and it can feel a bit wishy-washy, I'm not gonna lie, because it's asking you about sort of feeling like what you're good at, and it's really good at understanding sort of, what does the world need? Well, the world needs me. Yeah. But what do they need in you? So if we take I don't know, what does the world need? The world needs more happiness, doesn't it? So the world needs more happiness. What do I love? I like being happy. I also like making other people happy. I am by no ways a comedian, but I do get laughed at quite a lot. What am I good at? I'm good at talking. I am good at talking when I get on a topic that I'm all right on and I'm not knackered and I'm thingy. So, and then what can I be paid for? I can be paid for talking. So my actually ikigai, when I look at my career and my current job, so I love helping people. I love understanding. I love asking questions. I love finding out why. What does the world need? The world needs to improve. We always need something better. We always need to try and understand. We also always need to understand why. We might not need to improve it, but we need to streamline what we're doing. What can I be paid for? I can be paid for project managing those things, and I can be paid for sort of helping people to understand those things. What am I good at? I'm good at people. I am actually quite good at people, as much as I don't really very good at socialising anymore. I am good at the people aspect of it. It's one of the things that I do get commented on quite a lot. It's one of my I think it's been a consistent feedback throughout my childhood and my career that I am, I guess when I'm in a good mood, I'm good to be around. Isn't that everyone though? But I think it feels uncomfortable. Again, I've gone after this a few times before, often it's weird to say it out loud, but I think one of my strengths is I am quite enthusiastic. And sometimes it's really hard to be around someone that's enthusiastic and you not get that enthusiasm from. I have a tendency to be able to tap into people and go, "Oh, tell me more," and because I'm genuinely interested. It's not a game. It's not a ploy. So actually, then when you sort of take my 4 circles and you put them all together, you actually get the job that I'm going back to go and do. I thought that in the middle it would have been nursing, and I did like that, but and that was my ikigai. This is my new ikigai, and my podcast, what I'm doing now, that's part of my ikigai. So you can have different ones. So my purpose, that's how I've discovered my purpose. One of my purposes. So that's one aspect of how to start beating burnout, is find your purpose, find where you sit in life, find what that is. And if that's not in work, what can you do outside of work to get that back for yourself? Because you don't necessarily have to leave your job. You don't necessarily have to leave your family or walk off and do that. But is there something that you can do with your newfound knowledge of your purpose or whatever that is, that you can bring to yourself to start finding that inner happiness again? Another good phrase I like is, what's your North Star? What's your guiding star? What makes you? And that's, again, this purpose stuff is a bit, I know it'll make some people go, ugh. But actually sort of what is your North Star? What's your guiding? What is your due north? What is the thing? And when someone says to you, like, oh, what's your purpose? It's a very deep thing, but on a really surface level, what makes you happy? What do you do in your day-to-day life or don't do that could make you happy? So another phrase I have heard when people are talking about their purpose is, what's your North Star? What's your guiding route and what's your North Star? And purpose can be a bit kind of, it can be a bit all encompassing. It's a bit like, it's a very big thing, isn't it? What's your purpose? Because people still don't know what's the purpose of life, do they? I think it's just for living, really, personally, myself, and having a bit of fun. But is that the meaning of life? The purpose? Oh, well, anyway. Yeah, so your purpose is what makes you go forward, what gives you happiness, what that looks like. So if you're not sure in that and don't know what that is because you've been so entrenched in your work or your home life or whatever that is that's encompassed you and led you to a burnout, take some time for yourself, she says, to just look at your things that make you smile, things that make you happy. Is there anything that you can do outside of work or for yourself that give you a sense of self-worth again? You know, even if it is as simple as going outside for a walk for 10 minutes, that's perfectly fine, because it's giving you something back for yourself. One of the notes that I've made about and I have wrote is get good sleep and relax. And I wrote, get good sleep, relax. Because I always think that's similar. That's very similar to someone going, oh my God, I'm an overthinker. I am an overthinker and I can't stop it. And then someone goes, well, just stop thinking. And you're like, what? Shit. Oh my God, I haven't thought of that before. I am so happy I spoke to you. I'm so happy that I spoke to you, because I, in a million years, would never have thought to just stop thinking about it. Thank you so much. I'm going to go and tell my licensed therapist and practitioner that I don't need you anymore because you just told me to stop thinking. So if someone says, just relax, you're like, yeah, thanks for that, dickhead. I guess, but, you know, in all seriousness, sleep is really important. It is really important. And for the people out there who find sleep an elusive trait to have, it can really impact on, it does. It's clinically proven to impact on your mental health and your ability to deal with stress and your ability to deal with stresses and to do that. So, you know, just get a good night's sleep, everybody. Ta-da! You're fixed. Don't worry about it. But no, in all seriousness, if you can't get a good night's sleep, there are other ways to rest your brain. There are other ways to practice resting your mind, because that's where you will help to start to be able to think clearer, to help you get out of being burnt out. So, meditating. And I don't mean sitting there with crossed legs and stuff. There are apps out there now. So one I used to use was Calm. And I also used to use Headspace. They were fantastic. And what I did find out actually before I went off was, if you are a Teams user in work, there was a little thing on Teams that Headspace joined, and Lord knows if it's still there because I've not used it for over 12 months. But there was a thing that you could do about your daily commute. So if you're working at home, you could have like a daily commute, like a turn off, have a 10-minute meditate, and they go through some exercises. And it was actually a really good idea, and I used to do it when I remembered. So meditating is a really good way. So apps like Calm and Headspace are really good for them, and they guide you through it too. So it's not just necessarily meditating, it's mindfulness. So you can do 5 minutes, you can do 10, you can do 3. It just gives you that buffer to let your brain come down and release that stress that's in there. Another really good tip that I saw as well was, what did she say now? She was about the physical stress. So do something physical with it. And I know some of us want to do something physical with our stress and maybe to our stressors. So stressors are the people or things that cause the stress. But it's frowned upon. So one good thing she was saying was, say, like the commute example that I gave earlier on, all the stress that you've got pent up inside you. So when you get out of the car, the train, the bus, whatever it is, tense every single muscle in your body and breathe really slowly for 10 minutes, all tensed up, and then release it all. Let it all go and let it all hang out and do all that, and that'll feel better. Go into a cupboard and jump around and dance around if you don't want people seeing you do it. I don't know how big your cupboards are, but yeah, you could do that. Do a physical thing with the stress in the instant that you're feeling the stress, whatever that looks like, and that'll help the cortisol levels and things that are flooded reduce in your body. So there's some tips and tricks to help with getting out of burnout. The other huge thing that helps is talking, telling somebody, admitting it, having a conversation to see how you're feeling and what that feels like. Put some boundaries in place with people. So boundaries are a really, really good. So firstly, we'll do talking, then we'll do boundaries. So tell someone. So if you do have a line manager, tell your line manager, explain that you are going through this and you need some extra support. If you don't have a line manager because you're on your own, you're on your Billy old Todd, go and speak to a friend, speak to someone that you trust. If it's not work-related burnout and you're having those issues too, same thing, speak to somebody. And I think a lot of the times we don't talk to people and we don't have these conversations because we fear that we are failing because everyone around us looks like they're doing all right. And I mean, they probably are, we think. It's the same age old of what people put on social media is the only thing you know about them, isn't it? But you can't start to take steps forward if you don't reach out and ask for help. And I've said it before and I'll say it again and I'll never stop saying it. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is the biggest sign of strength because you have identified that you need some help, and it takes massive courage and it takes huge personal insight to say help. And that is just my belief. That is how I now see it. I never used to. I used to think asking for help was a huge sign of weakness because I should be able to do all of these things and I should be able to manage and I should be able to cope. But I don't know who told me that to start off with. I don't know who gave me that should. I don't know where that should came from. But it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It is a huge sign of strength. And it is going to help people and you and whoever around you to get out of burnout and to stop being the colour of new flamingo parents and be more ready to go and shake your tail, ask feathers to people. So talk, speak to people, have that conversation. And if you can't have that conversation with someone, there are anonymous hotlines to phone. If you haven't got that person around you or people or someone, there are things you can contact and services and charities you can contact. If your line manager is a total arse and doesn't understand that and can't do that, maybe it is time to consider working somewhere else. It's just a thought. Just a thought. Because do you want to? I suppose, it goes back to values and it goes back to purpose. Is your purpose to work with someone that's a complete and utter arse and dick? Probably not. Could you do better? Probably. So I think if you can't speak to whoever, if you've not got anyone in your circle, in your slightly wider circle at work, whoever that is, find someone. And then my last tip for starting to get out of burnout, or even stopping burnout to start off with, really actually, is boundaries. And if you guys can figure out how to do this, if you could let me know, that'd be amazing. So boundaries in the sense that doom scrolling, get off your phone. So emails, this was a huge thing for me in my old jobs. It was a huge thing. So we didn't get work phones. So all my shite was on my phone. So all my personal stuff was on my phone. All my work emails were on my phone. All of the incident reports I could get on my phone. No matter what day of the week it was, what time of the night it was, I could log on and check what was going on. And I did. Which used to affect my sleep quite a lot because stuff used to happen overnight. And I used to respond to emails on my day off, and I used to respond to my weeks off, my time off, and I never actually had any time off because I was constantly seeming to work. I made a massive conscious decision when I moved into this role that I do have Teams on my phone and I do have my Outlook on my phone, but I do not look at it of a weekend, and if I'm on holiday I completely delete the app. I take it off and I put it back on, and I will respond to emails of an evening if I'm sort of sat doing nothing, but not after sort of 7 o'clock. And for my maternity leave I took it all off completely, took everything off my phone to do with work completely, because I know I would nip on and have a look, and I'm off maternity leave, aren't I? And I know what I'm like, so I take it off. So I took that off, so I set that boundary with myself, and I will, when I go back, that boundary will be there in place too. But there are other boundaries about sort of, I work from home, other people work from home, have a start and end time, have a lunch. That was what I'm not fantastic at. Have a lunch, because actually I remember hearing someone about when they were working from home. It wasn't working from home, it was living in work. And I thought, oh yeah. So if I'm fortunate enough that I've got a space that isn't in the house. I come outside to the garden and go into the garage. And Bruce was fantastic in doing this for me, because we've got the space. I know not everyone's got that, but have a different desk, have a something that isn't where like you do other stuff. If you can, have a boundary with yourself, close that laptop, whatever that is. And even with your personal relationships, if it's not work related burnout, have boundaries with people. Say no. You are allowed to say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. And I'm pointing at myself here, not just everybody else. Say no, kind of, if you can't make something, you can't make it. If you are feeling exhausted, you are allowed to decline the invite. I mean, the bit about the burnout is you do tend to isolate yourself and withdraw, so it can have a negative impact. So there's bits where you probably do have to force yourself to do things you don't necessarily want to do. But overall, boundaries with people, boundaries with devices, that's always good. Boundaries with sleep. If you've got a TV in an example is if you've got a TV in your bedroom and you watch it till you fall asleep, but then you dream about the TV program that you've just watched, maybe don't do that. I don't know. Don't have a TV. Make your bedroom just the place that you go to sleep, and do some other stuff in there as well, like get dressed. Have that just as that space, like clean your spaces so that a designated space does the designated things. That might work. That might help to sort of save that mundaneness of everything. And I think there are loads. I mean, you just need to Google how to get out of burnout, and there's websites and websites out there that tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do. A lot of them do say get some sleep and rest and relax. Good luck with that if you have children or pets or an overactive mind, because just relax. But that's it. That's my that's it for this week for burnout, I think maybe what you could do is, if you replay this episode and do a shot for every time I say burnout, you'd be passed out more than anything else. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for coming along and being involved. I really appreciate it. I didn't really fancy doing today because I was knackered, but consistency is key, and we're here. And actually, I had a bit of fun doing it today. It was quite interesting for me, and I've learned a lot. I like this because I'm learning more stuff about, it's, hindsight's a fantastic thing, isn't it? I'm learning more stuff about the old version of me and what was and what I never want to go back to. So I think after learning things about burnout, I go, yes, I never want that to happen again in my work or my home life either. Unfortunately, for me, my support network is superb at home, and Bruce often does check-ins with me after I have my mini meltdowns. But it's been really handy for me reading about burnout prior going back to work, because that's not what I want. That's not happening again. We're not doing that. It's no fun. It's no fun for anybody. It's no fun for me. It's no fun for work. I'm useless, all of that stuff. So I hope this week has been useful. I hope it's been interesting. If anyone is listening and has any topics they want to suggest, that's great. Anyone's got any scales, like phrases for my 1 to 10 for my flamingo scale, pink scale, would be wonderful, because I've got a couple of ideas, but it'd be nice to see what you guys think. That'd be wonderful. So yeah, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I hope everything works out really well and wants to go what you want to do, and I hope that you are feeling pink and continue to feel pinker. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.